Hello, Tron Community Choir in lockdown. I hope you're all very well. In this video, I'm going to teach you a new song, I'm Not in Love by 10cc, which we'll perform at our next gig, whenever that might be. In this video, I'll sing through all the parts and you'll hear a demo recording of the arrangement that Marix and I made. Also in this video, I'll show you some music notation, as this is a useful way of representing music visually. However, don't worry if you can't read this, as everything will be sung through like we do in our normal rehearsals, and we won't ever use music notation in our Monday sessions. It's included here because some people might find it useful, or perhaps a bit interesting. So there are 4 videos for this song, one for each section of the choir, and this video is for lower mids. In the description below this video, I've put timestamps for each section of the song so you can easily navigate to a part of the song you'd like to learn. And you might find these YouTube keyboard shortcuts useful for replaying bits of the video. In a little bit, I'll talk you through the different sections of the song, but to give you an idea of what you'll be singing, here's the very beginning.
Just because I call you up, don't get me wrong, don't think you've got it made. I'm not in love, no. It's been I like to see you.
So that was the introduction and first verse of the song. As you'd have heard, there's no singing in the introduction. We then have 2 verses where the tune is sung by the higher mids with other parts accompanying. Apart from the words, verses 1 and 2 are identical. Those who know the original recording by 10cc will remember that at this point the band break out into an instrumental with a whispered "Big boys don't cry" over the top. We're going to miss that bit out and save the "Big Boys Don't Cry" bit until the very end of the song. So instead, after verse 2, we go straight on to verse 3, in which the melody is sung by the basses. There's then a middle 8 followed by a 4th verse, which is almost the same as verse 1, and then an outro. Between verses 1 and 2, there's what I'm calling a turnaround, as it's not really chorusy enough to be called a chorus, a short piece of linking material that gets us to the beginning of the next verse. So, lower mids, here we go. As I said, there's nothing for you to do during the introduction to the song. However, in the verses, you'll be singing oohs and ahs to accompany the higher mids or basses who'll be singing the tune. Each verse is exactly the same for you, apart from the very end of the 4th verse, which I'll explain later. So the part you sing during all these verses goes like this. That's your starting note, which is an E flat, and the speed of the piece is 1, 2, 3. So your part sounds like this: 3 and ooh. Now you do exactly the same thing for a second time, and so that first ooh on this note there, that lasts for 8 counts. Then we have 2 counts, 2 counts, and then 4 counts for that lower note. Once you've done that ooh idea twice, we then change sounds to an ah for this bit. 3 and ah. So it's just 2 notes, and the first note, which by the way is the same note as the first note in the oo bit, that's worth 4 counts. And then on the second note, which is this note here, that is, you come off on the third count of that bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, off. So putting all those things together, the music for verses 1, 2, and 3 for you sounds like this. And 1, 2, 3, and I'd recommend breathing every 8 beats during this verse, and on the R, you should start softly and get louder, which makes that moment a little bit more dramatic when we sing it together. And that's the whole verse, after which we have a short turnaround section. This turnaround section is hummed, and to get a big enough sound, you should try to feel the vibrations in the front of your face. For this part of the song only, we need the lower mids to divide into 2 sections. There's actually only 1 note difference between these 2 sections, but we really need this extra note to properly fill out the chord. So you've just ended the verse on that note there, ah, and the first note of the turnaround section is just the 1 note higher. That goes for both parts, the higher and the lower mid part. And it sounds like this. This is the first lower mid part. 1, 2, 3, and and the second lower mid part, again, you just finished the verse on that note. Ah, and you go up a note to get your first note for the turnaround. Your part sounds like this. And 1, 2, 3, and and together, those parts sound like this. And 1, 2, 3, and as you'd have heard there, it's only the third hummed note which is different between those 2 parts. So there's a turnaround section between verses 1 and 2, and also between verses 2 and 3. And the last hum of the turnaround section, that note there, is the same note as the first oo of the next verse. So going from the turnaround to the next verse sounds like this. I'll sing the upper part just for now. And 1, 2, 3, and etc., etc., etc. So let's put that into context. Here is verse 2 and 3 with the turnaround in the middle.
I like to see you, but then again, that doesn't mean you mean that much to me. So if I call you, don't make a fuss. Don't tell your friends about the 2 of us. I'm not in love.
Now, as you would have heard there, the end of the third verse, which is the verse sung by the basses, we don't have a full turnaround section. Instead, you sing the first note of the turnaround, what's on an oo sound, and hold it for 8 counts. This takes us to the middle 8 section. The middle 8 section has a more close harmony feel to it, and it swings a little more than in the verses. And all the parts together sound like this.
Ooh, you wait a long time for me. Ooh, you wait a long time. Ooh, you wait a long time for me. Ooh, you wait a long time.
So the lower mid part for this section, it's not really that difficult. It kind of follows the tune that the basses are singing, but of course uses different notes to help fill out the chord a little more. So as I explained before, just before this middle 8 section, you're holding that note there, and that note is the first note of the turnaround ordinarily, but after the third verse, you're singing that note for 8 counts holding to oo. So that's like this. And now the next note, which is the first note of the middle 8 section, is just 1/2 step lower. Ooh. So you go ooh, then down to ooh. And your music here follows the tune. So the first half of this section, you're only using 2 notes. Just those 2 close notes there. So 1, 2, 3, and ooh, you'll wait a long time for me. Now the answering phrase to that is kind of the same, apart from it goes a little bit higher at the end. So the second half of the middle 8 sounds like this. 3, and ooh, you'll wait a long time. So putting those 2 halves together, 3, and ooh, you'll wait a long time for me. Ooh, you'll wait a long time. Now all you need to do in the middle 8 is sing that twice. After the middle 8, we move immediately to the 4th verse, which begins in the same way as every other verse. However, instead of moving to the R section, you simply sing your first note again, an oo, for 8 counts. After this new note, we move straight to the outro section, which comprises you and the basses singing oos over an accompaniment. You only have 2 notes here. The first one is the same as the one you were just singing, and the second one is a note higher. And you alternate between these 2 notes until you've sung each 4 times. So that final verse for you sounds like this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, da, da, da. You do that twice as normal, and then you go back to your first note for 8 counts. And that's the end of the 4th verse. And the outro sounds like this. 3, and and you alternate between those 2 notes for another 2 times. And that's it. So here's the complete song with your part a little higher in the mix so you can hear what you should be singing at each point. Enjoy.
I'm not in love.
Take